Welcome, dear friends. I'm Chris Miller, Abrahamic Reunion Operations Director, and happy to be your Zoom host today. I'll be helping with the breakout rooms, and I also wanted to just give a little introduction to the program and to all of you for being here. So welcome. I might just say hello to everybody out there on the screen, and give a wave. Happy New Year to all of our Jewish friends celebrating Rosh Hashanah just recently. And this is an ongoing series of interreligious text study that brings multiple perspectives to different stories and themes so that we can understand each other better and even gain more perspective on those stories and themes through each other's voices and eyes and perspectives and hearts and minds. So the purpose is to really know one another and to know ourselves also by sharing. And we'll talk about some ground rules for the sharing sessions in the breakout rooms later when we do that. But suffice to say, it's a non-competitive space where we're here to listen to each other and learn from each other. The general summary. So the theme today is the story of Joseph, and we were going to do that last month, but Abed couldn't be with us, so we decided to just talk about talking, and we talked about interfaith dialogue itself, which was really wonderful, actually. We had a great session about why do we come to these sessions. And just a brief introduction for Abrahamic Reunion. Abrahamic Reunion is a people-to-people organization that works to replace violence, hatred, and fear with peace, understanding, and trust in Israel, Palestine, and the world. Founded in 2005 by religious and spiritual leaders from the major faith groups in the Holy Land with the support of donors worldwide, AR has conducted hundreds of intercultural and interfaith events which have directly touched the lives of tens of thousands of Israelis and Palestinians. And Rising Tide International is a interfaith spiritual center in Sarasota, Florida, founded in 2001. And Lake Worth Interfaith Network is a group that brings together different faith groups for dialogue, understanding, and peace in Lake Worth, Florida. So those are our key partners. And I guess I should also mention TAO. Rabbi Deb is joining us this session, and hopefully future sessions as well. And she's often part of Temple Adath Or, TAO, in Fort Lauderdale, a longtime friend and partner of Abrahamic Reunion and Lake Worth Interfaith Network, and been happy to be there with TAO and Rabbi Mark and now Rabbi Deb as well. So with that said, I'll turn it over. We have Ted Brownstein sharing a Baha'i perspective on the story of Joseph. We have Sheikh Alsalam Manasra from Rising Tide, who's sharing a Muslim and Sufi perspective, and Rabbi Deb Smith sharing the Jewish perspective. So please, Ted, are you beginning?
We're going to start with Deb, go to Sheikh Abed, and then myself.
Okay, all right. Deb, it's yours.
We're going to do the video first, right? To tell the story of Joseph and set up context.
Thanks for cueing me.
If that works. And it's
sure.
Interesting. Last time we showed the short clip from the Torah perspective, the biblical perspective of the story. And this one is the Quran, which is very, very similar, has just a few interesting differences, which we'll get to later.
In the land of Canaan, Prophet Joseph, lived with his father, Prophet Jacob, and his 11 brothers. Yusuf was greatly loved by his father, which caused jealousy and resentment in the hearts of his brothers. One day, Yusuf shared a dream with his father and brothers. In the dream, 11 stars, the sun and the moon, were bowing to him. His father was amazed, but his brothers were filled with envy and distrust. Out of jealousy, Yusuf's brothers conspired to rid themselves of him. They decided to throw him into a well, hoping to separate him from their father forever. Yusuf thrown into the well. The brothers took Yusuf to a remote well and threw him inside. Yusuf called out for help, but his cries only echoed back to him, and no one came to his aid. The brothers returned to their father, showing him Yusuf's shirt stained with fake blood. They told him that a wolf had attacked and killed Yusuf. Prophet Yaqub was heartbroken, but placed his trust in Allah. Meanwhile, a passing caravan found Yusuf in the well. They rescued him and took him with them. Upon reaching Egypt, they sold him as a slave to an Egyptian nobleman. Yusuf was taken to Egypt and sold to an official named Al-Aziz. He began his new life as a servant in the household of this Egyptian noble. The seduction of Yusuf. Zulaika, the wife of Al-Aziz, was struck by Yusuf's beauty and purity. She became infatuated with him and tried to seduce him, but Yusuf remained steadfast in his faith and refused her advances. When Yusuf fled from Zulaika's attempt, she falsely accused him of misconduct. Her husband Al-Aziz believed her and had Yusuf thrown into prison. Yusuf in prison. In prison, Yusuf found comfort in his faith. He befriended fellow prisoners and began interpreting their dreams, offering them hope with his wisdom. The dream interpretation. Two prisoners shared troubling dreams with Yusuf. He interpreted the dreams. One prisoner would be released and the other would be executed. His interpretations came true. Years later, the king of Egypt had a disturbing dream that no one could interpret. The prisoner who had been freed remembered Yusuf and told the king about him. Yusuf's interpretation for the king. Yusuf was brought before the king and interpreted the dream. He explained that Egypt would experience 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of famine. The king was impressed by Yusuf's wisdom and appointed him as a high-ranking official. Yusuf's new responsibility was to prepare Egypt for the coming famine by storing grain during the years of plenty. The brothers arrive in Egypt. During the years of famine, Yusuf's brothers traveled to Egypt to buy grain. They did not recognize him, but Yusuf immediately recognized them. Yusuf decided to test his brothers. He accused them of being spies and demanded that they bring their youngest brother Benjamin to Egypt to prove their honesty. Back home in Canaan, Prophet Yaqub was reluctant but agreed to send Benjamin to Egypt with his brothers, trusting that Allah would protect him. The reunion. When Benjamin arrived in Egypt, Yusuf's heart was moved, and he could no longer keep his identity a secret. He revealed himself to his brothers, leading to a heartfelt and emotional reunion. Yusuf forgave his brothers for their past wrongdoings. He invited his entire family to join him in Egypt, where they would be safe and reunited. Prophet Yaqub and his family settled in Egypt, living peacefully and prosperously under the care and wisdom of Prophet Yusuf. They enjoyed Allah's blessings, and their hearts were filled with joy.
All right. Well, now, is this now for Deb? All right, Rabbi Deb, you're up.
Okay, I'm up first, and I'm very pleased to be here tonight and to kick off this discussion. The topic I'll be speaking out about broadly is Joseph, healing, and reconciliation. And it's a really fitting topic to deal with as a Jewish person, as a rabbi during these days of awe, the high holy days of our season, and it's the season of the Jewish New Year and a time for reflection and introspection, and it's a season of return and repentance and of reconciliation. So it's very fitting that we look at this story at this time. The story, I'll give some background, and some of it you've just seen in the video clip, but in order to move forward, what I have to say, I need the material I'll be sharing with you. So the story of Joseph is found in the book of Genesis, the first of the 5 books of the Old Testament. And this book is known as Bereshit in Hebrew, which means in the beginning. So it's the beginning of the story. And actually the narrative of Joseph and all the different parts of his story is the longest ongoing story in the book of Genesis. It takes up a lot of space in the scroll, so to speak. The book of Genesis itself is one very long narrative of family dysfunction. And I always laugh when I talk about this because I'm a family therapist by profession. I'm a clinical social worker, but my specialty is family therapy. And I've taken many looks at the book of Genesis and all of the family issues that go on there and have gone on there. So we read story after story in Genesis about imperfect people and imperfect families. And regardless, though, of their imperfections, these are our leaders in the Jewish biblical lineage. And imperfect people though they may be, they're considered holy people. And they have a deep and close relationship and connection with God. So the theme of reconciliation of the Bible's imperfect personalities goes all the way back to Abraham and his immediate family. And after Isaac and Ishmael have a messy separation, they come back together to bury Sarah. And one generation later, Jacob and Esau reconcile after Jacob wrestles with an angel and comes into his own identity and is now able to face both his past and look toward his future. And finally, the book of Genesis concludes with the messy relationship story of Joseph and his brothers, which is a narrative that ends on a positive note because it ends with the reconciliation of the brothers. So what are the details of the story of Joseph and his brothers that get us to the reconciliation that we find? Joseph is one of many brothers, and he's born into a dysfunctional family. He had a father who favored him, inciting the jealousy of the other brothers. And when God gave him a dream of ruling over them, Joseph shared his dream with his brothers. We don't really know why he did that. Did he do it out of just innocence, or did he do it perhaps out of a feeling of arrogance? But at any case, incensed, they gave him over to human traffickers. Basically, they sold him. He was shipped far from his family, and he became a house slave in Egypt. Not a very auspicious beginning for a young man, but nonetheless. He eventually worked his way up in that house, and he was a man of integrity, and he spurned the advances made at him by his owner's wife. For being rejected, the wife falsely accused him of attempted rape. And without a trial, Joseph was removed from his position, placed in jail, and left to just stay there indefinitely. But because God had given him the gift of being a dream interpreter, he was able to interpret the dreams of 2 of his fellow prisoners. And while imprisoned, Joseph also gained Pharaoh's favor by interpreting Pharaoh's dreams, which foretold a great famine in the land. He subsequently rose to power as Egypt's second in command, and he saved the nation by storing food during years of plenty to be used in the years of famine that were foretold in his dream. So repeatedly, though, so far, and he's still young and he's still at the beginning of his trajectory of power, we see him victimized and sinned against by other people. The whole string of events started because his brothers had been willing to betray him. But Joseph seems to be a man who has completely forgiven those who sinned against him. In fact, he later interprets the fact that his brothers sold him into slavery as a preordained act that God had planned in order for him to end up in this high position of power in Egyptian society and to be able to help his brothers in a terrible time of need and famine. So there's no hint of grumbling, complaining, or bitterness toward God or others by Joseph that we read in the Torah. It appears that he has kept a loving and open heart. When his brothers arrive in Egypt to purchase food due to the famine in their homeland, they don't know that the person they're confronting to ask for food, the second in command, is their brother. But Joseph recognizes them, and he does provide the food that they are so desperately seeking. He plans, though, an elaborate test to see if they have changed. Will they betray Benjamin, their younger brother, just like they betrayed him? In Genesis, in the text, Genesis 44, verse 33, I always cite the verses because some people are sitting with perhaps, an Old Testament and want to check it. So it's Genesis 44, verse 33. We learn that no, the brothers have changed. Judah offers to go to prison himself rather than leave Benjamin. Joseph realizes his brothers are different now. It is at this point that he then reveals his identity to them. And it's at this moment that there is total reconciliation. Once their father Jacob dies, Joseph has him embalmed in Egypt and gets permission from Pharaoh to bury his father in the cave of Machpelah, which is where all of the ancestors were developed, a burial site that Abraham purchased. And Joseph and his brothers and their families then return to Egypt and settle there. But, think of the brothers, think of their past history with Joseph. Rightfully so, they're afraid that he may still bear a grudge against them for what they did to him so many years ago, throwing him in the pit, selling him into slavery. But something really interesting happens. And in Genesis 50, verses 15 through 21, we read the following. I'm going to just quote from this passage a little bit. Joseph's brothers, seeing that their father was dead now, said, "Perhaps Joseph still bears us ill will and intends to repay us for the harm that we inflicted on him." So they brought a charge to Joseph, saying this, "Your father left discharge upon his death, saying, 'Thus shall you say to Joseph, Please, I think of you, forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, though they inflicted harm upon you. Now please forgive the transgression of the servant of your father's God.'" Joseph cried when they spoke to him. His brothers also bowed in front of him, and they said, "Here we are, your slaves." And Joseph said to them, "Have no fear, for am I in place of God? Am I in place of God? Though you intended me harm, God intended it for good, in order to accomplish what is now the case, to keep so many people alive. Now therefore, have no fear. I will provide for you and your little ones." This is how he comforted them, and he spoke to them. He spoke straight from one heart to the other. Joseph demonstrates that he's learned the power of peace and forgiveness. He's gained the ability to look back on the past events in the light of new insights he's gained and experiences, seeing past the hurt that he experienced to look at a larger picture. He doesn't deny his own pain, but it no longer is controlling him. Therefore, he's fully able to reconnect with his family, whom he still deeply loves, despite the pain that they have caused him. And as the amazing language in verse 21 of this says, Joseph is able to speak, quote, straight to their hearts without any cover or artifice. In other words, Joseph is able to shine his God spark, the spark that we all carry inside of us, of God, into the hearts of his brothers, reconciling their differences in the process. We, from where we sit, we must try to emulate Joseph if we, the Jewish people, have any desire to connect with others across our differences. True, it can be very hard to access our own internal God sparks. Are we able to mute the person? Thank
Well,
you.
Leah, you keep unmuting, and getting some feedback. So maybe just mind that you can keep muted. Thanks.
Thank you. We must try to emulate Joseph if we, as the Jewish people, have any desire to connect with other people, to make bridges across our differences. It can be very hard to actually find inside of ourselves that tiny, we call it a pintala, a little spark, a little dot, a little connection, let alone find it and let alone connect with those of other people. But we really have to try, because that is how we can ultimately be reconciled and redeemed. The story of Joseph and the book of Genesis gives us some skills and tools to engage in tikkun olam, repair of the world. We can use those tools, those God sparks within us, to engage in the work of connection and reconciliation that our world so desperately needs right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deb, Rabbi Deb.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Deb. It was amazing.
Lovely the way you brought your experience at family therapy into looking at the stories in of Genesis, and all the patriarch stories, as you said, contain a measure of dysfunction, but also a measure of faith and reconciliation. So thanks for that perspective.
Okay, so it's my turn. All right.
Please. Shukran.
Thank you so much. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So first of all, I'm happy to see you all today. I can't see you so much, but it's my eye. I get a very beautiful kiss from my bees today, but the kiss was in my eye. So, and this is good. So, and I'm a beekeeping, by the way. So again, it is, I would like to thank you so much that you're joining us today at this enjoyable meeting, where we learn about different points of views, different perspectives, and the practicing the respecting others, even if we agree or disagree. And difference is necessary for coexistence. Without difference, there would be no progress. So, I'm sorry. So, and we agree with dear Ted that we will have a follow-up meetings for Joseph's story. It's actually lots of information, and it's a very big story, even in the Quran, or actually in the Quran, the only full story in the Quran, it's Joseph's story, Surah Yusuf. So I will speak about today about the visions and the dreams in Islamic Sufi perspective. Just one correction with the video. The video at the beginning was speaking about Islamic perspective of Joseph in the beginning. Just one thing, in the Islamic perspective in the Quran, it is started directly with the dream of Joseph, and Jacob asked Joseph, don't tell your brothers. And in the Quran there is no mention that Joseph tell his brothers about the dream. The stories between the Quran and the Torah, it's so similar. So I will not talk today about the details of the Quran story of Joseph. You saw in general what is the story as the story of the Quran, but rather about the lessons and the importance points, because Allah describes the story of Joseph as the best of the perfect stories. This is because it is the only complete story in the Holy Quran. And secondly, because it has multiple themes and contains a large number of lessons and stages, from each of which we can learn many lessons and divine wisdom. Furthermore, the story in the Quran and the Torah are almost 75% similar, with some differences in the details. Today I will focus specifically on the Sufi perspective in this story and its profound meanings, especially as interpreted by Ibn Arabi, the famous Sufi philosopher of the 12th, 13th century, and other Sufis. I will also touch one of the philosophical views of Moses bin Maimon, the Rambam, who lived approximately the same period. The first axis, visions or dream in Islam and Sufism in Islam. In Islam, there is no doubt that visions and dreams are one of the ways in which Allah, God, reveals himself to his prophets, as agreed upon by Muslims, scholars, and mentioned in several places in the Quran, such as the story of Abraham when he told his son about the sacrifice. It is also mentioned in the Sunnah. The Sunnah, it's the speech and the teach of the Prophet Muhammad. There is too many different books, Sunnah books, but the most two famous is Al-Bukhari and Muslim, and the most two rights books, and actually the most two sacred books after the Quran. But the Sunnah was gathered and was written after the life of Prophet Muhammad, and after they, because he didn't want to mix his speeches with the Quran. In Al-Bukhari book, they mentioned the Sahaba, the friends of the Prophet Muhammad. They says about the dreams of the Prophet Muhammad, the first thing that began with the messenger of Allah, Muhammad, peace be upon him, from revelation was the true vision in his sleep. And he would not see a vision except that it came like the break of dawn, which means so clear, as he saw in his dreams. And the Prophet Muhammad says, peace be upon him, a true vision is one of the 46 parts of the prophecy. This applies to all human beings if they see a true vision. Vision in Ibn Arabi's philosophy. In Ibn Arabi's Sufi's philosophy, existence consists of three levels. The presbytable, the world of testimony. Second, the intelligible, the world of reason and meaning. Third, the imagined, the world of imagination or intermediate realm. It's called the barzakh, which lays between the unseen and the seen, between meanings and form. In this last world, spiritual meanings appear in sensory forms, such as images, symbols, and dreams. Vision occurs in this intermediate realm, that called al-barzakh, as God casts meanings into the heart of the servant, which are represent in imaginary image seen by the sleeper. For him, vision is not an illusion, but rather image of truth in a symbolic language. And there is a big difference between illusion and imagination in Ibn Arabi view. As for the interpretation of dreams, it is a return of image to their realities. Joseph, peace be upon him, was the most knowledgeable of the people in this regard, because he was given the knowledge of interpretations, which is why Ibn Arabi called him the Imam of imagination, the leader or the guide of imaginations and interpretations. He also says that the first thing a servant is given in the beginning is the revelation of vision, even for humans who are not prophets. Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani in 12th century, one of the Imams of Sufism, adds that one of the degrees of closeness of God is righteous vision. According to Ibn Arabi, there are degrees of visions. An explicit degree that does not need interpretation, such as Abraham's vision of a sacrifice of Ismail or his son. A symbolic degree that requires interpretations, such as Joseph's vision of the stars. A vision, and the third one, a vision from the truth to the servant, from God to men, called divine revelation. And fourth, a vision from the self or the evil inclination, called dreams. Ibn Arabi also believes that the whole world is a great vision, and he expands on this idea by saying that our life in this world is itself a vision whose meaning is only revealed at death, which is a true awakening. Citing the hadith that speak of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said, people are asleep, and when they die, they wake up. Ibn Arabi says in Fusus al-Hikam and al-Futuhat al-Makkiyah, these two books belong to Ibn Arabi, he says there that what Joseph saw in his sleep was the truth, but in the form of his family, that is the prostration of the planets. The sun and the moon was a manifestation of the truth in a form close to him. This indicates the great thing that Joseph would later attain, beginning with a true and sincere vision. But that was symbolic and could only be interpreted after some time. Ibn Arabi links the vision to Joseph's beauty, considering it a proclamation of the light of divine beauty that would later appear in him. The vision, according to a Jewish philosopher Moses ben Maimon, the Rambam, in the 12th century, in his book, The Guide for the Perplexed, he believes that prophecy has degrees, that lowest of which is the degree of vision. He divides vision into two things: symbolic visions that require interpretations, as in the case of Ibn Arabi, such as the vision of Joseph. Second, a clear vision which contain explicit words from God or the king, as in the vision of Abraham. He says that the prophecy can only be achieved through imagination, and that vision is the realm of prophetic imagination. For example, Joseph's vision of the planets, the sun and the moon, was not an ordinary dream, but the beginning of his prophecy. The Rambam explains this philosophical by saying that the active intellect is the mediator between God and the world, flooding the prophet's imagination with image that appears in dreams. Here we see striking similarities between thoughts of Ibn Arabi and that of Moses ibn Maimon. This is about the first theme that about the vision. Inshallah, the next meeting we will speak about the different axes or themes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheikh Abed. That was very informative. We know so little about, the Sufi prophets, even though like Rumi is very popular today, yet you filled in a lot of background for us. Well, I can go ahead and start. It's wonderful to be here with you with such a mixed, diverse group, and to share at a time in history when the world is really struggling to find its cohesiveness, its unity. And this meeting is valuable in a couple of ways. One is that we are together as a diverse group and we seek to build bridges to understand one another, to build relationship and to build community. And it's so very important. And then the topic of Joseph, showing the hardships that Joseph suffered, and then the eventual reconciliation with his family provides a model of unity. The Baha'i faith is all about unity. So powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth, the Baha'i writings say, and also the well-being of mankind, its peace and security is unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established. So we live on a small planet, a global community that is emerging and that eventually will find a way to live together in peace. The story of Joseph holds an exalted place in all the Abrahamic faiths, as you've seen, in Judaism, Christianity, Islam, as well as in the Baha'i faith. We heard tell how it's the longest story in the Torah, making up 14 out of 50 chapters in the book of Genesis. In the Quran, it's called the best of stories. And many times the Quran refers to the biblical stories with a reference, almost assuming that the hearers know these stories. And as I understand from my friend Sheikh Abed, the Quran teaches the people, the Muslims, to go to the Jews to learn the stories. So there's a beautiful place for relationship building and dialogue there. So the theme in the Baha'i faith is unity, recognizing that in this age of history, the world needs to learn how to live together in a global community in peace with respect for our differences. It acknowledges both sacred books, both the Torah and the Quran, and the stories that they contain about Joseph. In fact, the Joseph story has a very exalted place in the Baha'i faith, because it was the very first revelation of the Baha'i writings, a retelling and commentary on the story of Joseph by the Bab, whose name means the gate, who was the forerunner of Baha'u'llah. And these two prophets founded the Baha'i faith in the mid-1840s. The Bab's first revelation was a book called Qayyum al-Asma, which in Arabic means the self-subsisting Lord of Names. And the story about how this book came about is quite interesting. Events unfolded in May 23rd of 1844, where a group of Sheikhi Muslim scholars and intellectuals were looking for the promised one that their teachers had taught them about. And so the Bab met Mullah Hussein, who became later his first disciple, at the city gates in Shiraz, Persia, on that evening of May 23rd, 1844, and invited Mullah Hussein to his home. There they had an extended conversation about the signs that would mark the common one. And the Bab began a revelation of his commentary on the Surah of Joseph that is found in the Quran. The Qiyam al-Asma by itself is a major work that consists of 111 chapters or surahs of 42 verses each that reveal the mystical meanings of unity, sacrifice, healing, and reconciliation so needed in this divided and troubled world today. These verses attracted the hearts of Mullah Hussein and other Muslim scholars at that time due to their poetic beauty and their message of unity. In fact, the beauty of the poetry is a mark of the Quran. It's very alliterative and poetic and very beautiful to chant and read. And so too, Qiyam al-Asma follows this same Islamic model of beautiful poetry. In his commentary or tafsir, the Bab proclaimed that Joseph's story had infinite meanings and compares the dispute between Joseph and his brothers to countless disputes that divide humanity. One of the first disputes that the Bab pointed to was the divisions between the Islamic sects. Persia was a Muslim society at that time. The vast majority of people were Muslims, and yet the Muslim world is divided into 72 or more different groups, most notably the Sunni and the Shia. Almost immediately after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, his followers split into different factions and violently opposed each other. Ali, who was a cousin and son-in-law of Muhammad and one of Muhammad's first disciples, was assassinated while he was praying in the Kufa Mosque in what's now Iraq during Ramadan. In the Shia tradition, he represents the first of the Imams. In the Sunni tradition, he was the fourth caliph. But likewise, Omar and Utham, who were the second and third caliphs, were assassinated in sectarian disputes, as were 11 of the 12 Shia imams who were poisoned and killed by other Muslims. So one of the teachings of the Bab was to denounce this sectarian infighting, and he gave a mystical interpretation of the story of Joseph, where the Imam Hussein, who was martyred, was represented by Joseph, and the other factions of Islam by the other brothers, and he called for their reconciliation. And he told his disciples then to act differently than the brothers of Joseph had in the story. Quoting from the writings of the Bab, he said, "Denounce ye not one another. We have created you from one tree. We have caused you to be leaves and the fruit of the same tree, that happily ye may be a source of comfort to one another. Regard ye not save as your own selves, that no feelings of aversion may prevail among you. It behooves you to be one indivisible people. Act not as the violent sectarian people of the Quran have acted, for if you do so, your fruits will come to naught, and you'll be spending your life on vanities. If, however, you observe piety in your faith, God will surely nourish you from the treasures of his heavenly grace." So given that the Bab's vision had many meanings, the meaning extends to many of the disputes in the world. Islam, of course, is not alone in having sectarian disputes. In the Jewish tradition, historically, there were various sects, even in the first century, in the time of Christ, with differing views on the Jerusalem temple and on the priesthood, who should be the high priest and so forth. And their antagonisms were so violent that they turned against each other and were fighting, even as the Roman armies were besieging Jerusalem and causing a famine in the city. So this senseless hate has been labeled sinat chinam, and is the rabbis blamed this unreasonable hate for the destruction and loss of the Jewish temple, which was a devastation to the Jewish nation. Battles within Christian sects, of course, have been similarly plagued history, and violence between Catholics and Protestants is well known, but many other antagonisms flourished throughout the centuries. Accusations, charges, and countercharges of heresy and discrimination of one denomination against another, all claiming allegiance to God and to Christ. So the Bab's concern was not only for Islam, but for all humanity. In the opening words of the Qayyum al-Asma, he says, "All praise be to God, who hath through the truth of power sent down this book unto his servants, that they may serve as a shining light for all humanity." And in another well-known quote of the Bab, what we call the remover of difficulties, which is often said by people in times of distress, by practicing Baha'is in times of distress, and repeated 99 or even 95 times, it says, "Is there any remover of difficulties save God? Say, praise be God, he is God." And here's the interesting part: all are his servants, and all abide by his bidding. So the Bab viewed all the people, regardless of their religious preferences, regardless of their faithfulness or lack of faithfulness to the covenants of God, as his servants. This is a radical statement on the oneness of humanity. Everyone is a servant of God, and all stand in relation to the divine as images of the invisible God, one tree with many branches. Accordingly, many Baha'is call for reconciliation of the people, and the prayers call for reconciliation of the people and their differences. I'd like to share one with you now. The prayer goes, and you might want to assume a posture of prayer, settling into your seat. O thou kind Lord, O thou who art generous and merciful, we are the servants of thy threshold, and are gathered beneath the sheltering shadow of thy divine unity. The sun of thy mercy is shining upon all. The clouds of thy bounty shower upon all. Thy gifts encompass all. Thy loving providence sustains all. The glances of thy favor are cast upon all. O Lord, grant thine infinite bestowals, and let the light of thy guidance shine. Gather all the people beneath the shadow of thy bounty, and cause them to unite in harmony, so that they may become as the rays of one sun, as the waves of one ocean, as the fruit of one tree. May they drink from the same fountain. May they be refreshed by the same breeze. May they receive illumination from the same source of light. Thou art the giver, the merciful, the omnipotent. The key elements of the Joseph story carry robust meanings, which we've only began to explore tonight. Joseph's physical beauty and the beauty of his coat of many colors represents many things, including the spiritual beauty of unity. Sun, moon, and stars, and all other interests revolve around this beauty. The troubles in the story of Joseph began with a small family jealousy that grew out of hand, leading to cruelty and alienation. The divine hand, however, had another end in mind, and the story shows us that eventually Joseph's brothers needed him, needed food in time of famine, but more importantly, they needed forgiveness for the way they had treated Joseph. So just as the brothers may have had many legitimate complaints against Joseph for the treatment he received, the special treatment he received from his father, and Joseph had a legitimate complaint against his brothers for selling him into slavery, many disputes between peoples and nations today, between religions, have roots in real injustices. Yet the story of Joseph shows that reconciliation is more important than nursing the pains of the past, that healing is possible, that peace is possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear brother. Thank you so much. I just will make one comment, dear brother, when you say that's true, Allah motivate the people, the Muslims, to ask the people of book. Actually, they called him in the Quran the people of reminder. And in Surah Anbiya, he says, "And we sent not before you except men to whom we revealed. So ask the people of the reminder if you don't know." At the same time, Allah also says to the people of book, "Indeed, this Quran relates to the children of Israel most of that over which they differ." So Allah always motivates the people to exchange, and this is the way, the beautiful way that He created everything. So yeah, this is what the only.
Yeah, thank you for that insight. So I think now we're going to go into our small groups. Chris has set up, I don't know how many, if we have 3 or 4 different groups, we have 17, 18 of us here together. And you'll have a chance to discuss with each other what struck you from this discussion, what you learned or what you found most significant, and also to make acquaintance with people of a variety of backgrounds. So please introduce yourselves and select a spokesperson from your group so when you come back we can all come together. Let's see, I was going to share the rules for the discussion. It's good to set some ground rules. And Chris, did you want to go over these?
Sure, yeah. Well, the main component is just to be here to listen and hear each other. So listen respectfully and ask about what you don't understand. Try to avoid debating or making negative comments about other beliefs or groups. Express your own thoughts and share your own perspective using I statements like, I feel the prophet Joseph represented da 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 da, or from my experience. So just sharing from that personal space. Enjoy sharing commonalities and celebrating differences. And please don't. If you find yourself in a monologue where you might have been talking for a little while and the others haven't been talking, just take a break, take a pause. Let there be space so that each person has plenty of time to share. Sound good? So, and you might even just, one option can be to have a timekeeper in your group. Okay, we'll give each person, so many minutes to share, and then we'll have discussion after that. That can be a really nice format as well. So how long do we want to do the rooms, Ted? 20 minutes or?
I think we talked about 20 minutes and then come back together, yeah.
Okay, so 20 minutes and the prompt is just to discuss what we heard, yeah? Discuss the Prophet Joseph and that story and...
Yeah, introduce yourself to the group and get to know one another a little bit first, and then discuss what was meaningful to you from the 3 perspectives that we heard tonight on the Joseph story.
And we'll let Zoom just wizard everybody into breakout rooms, so you'll get to meet, friends according to Zoom's choosing. All right, here we go. So I don't know if each group chose a spokesperson to share a little something.
Yes, in our group, we chose Catherine Martinez to briefly tell us what we discussed. Catherine?
Catherine.
I didn't realize I was muted. I'm sorry. And I apologize. Something's going on with my camera. I can't, and I'm on the iPad.
No,
But anyway, so we had the blessing of having Abdis Alsalam, Amanda, and Yon with us. And I think we just explored a little bit more of the themes of the story of Joseph, talking about faith in God, forgiveness. I mean, there's so many themes that we can't really, it's hard to summarize. You can't summarize them. And each theme, each thread, you look at the story, you can follow this thread through the whole story. We talked about the fact that this has inspired a lot of literature. Remember the Broadway play, Joseph and the Technicolor what is it? The Technicolor Dreamcoat. That's just one small example. And Alsalam also shared a little bit about the Sunnah and about what it was. And he's promised us, which looking forward to it, he's promised us that he and the rest of the group we will have further meetings and further explorations of this profound and beautiful story. So I would turn it over to the leader of the group. This was room 2. So I'll turn it over to the one who's running the show. I don't know which.
Thanks so much, Catherine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wonderfully said. The next spokesperson.
I can speak for group 3. It's interesting. All 4 of us really admire interfaith work. A couple of people have been very involved in promoting it. And I think all of us really enjoy the beauty of spirituality from other faiths. And we're glad we're not stuck in one. And the Joseph story, we all think is pretty amazing. And such an example of forgiveness, so outstanding, and that it's such an important story in the 3 Abrahamic faiths. And it's pretty amazing how it's portrayed and just so important. So we enjoyed very much hearing from each other.
Sounds like a really sweet exchange. Wonderful. Group 4.
Group 4 was a wonderful chance for us to get together, to get to know one another, Estra and Hakika, if I'm saying their names properly, who both have a connection to Shahabuddin and Rising Tide, but I think didn't know each other. And we spent a good bit of time trying to decide who would be the spokesperson for the group, and both vigorously declined. So, we decided we would do it by committee. So I'll share one thought and maybe they'll kick in. But there was a thought that the 3 presenters all complemented each other so well. With Reb Deb, with her kind of personal perspective and family dynamics. Sheikh Abed with the mystical dream significance of the revelation, and the Baha'i perspective on the betterment of the world, and really having these teachings penetrate into making the world a better place, was one of the thoughts that came out in our group. And that might be it. Good to see everybody. Hi.
Does the rest of the committee want to chime in?
I will say one thing, which is I would like the leaders. I would have liked, or in the future, or whatever. I'm just so curious about Joseph being sort of not the common man, so not the ordinary person, but an elevated person, a person that has been given just naturally by God these special gifts, and how, like the teachings, how the religions reconcile and use him as our example, like be like Joseph, but we know we're not like Joseph. So I would like them to talk about how the religions are able to teach us that we too can forgive like Joseph forgave, even though we don't have those special gifts from God. That kind of thing, the questions that raises. So that was one thing that came to my mind.
Actually, if I may, there is something in the story that tells us that, yeah, we have, of course, we are not prophets, but and this is one of the themes that I wanted to talk about after the next meeting. But yeah, we have something like Joseph, which is the dreams. So if we can have dreams, and this is the signs from Allah to us, that Allah talks to the people in that way. So yeah, we can be also forgiven. We can forgive, and we can use this. So
That's nice. Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
Like Rabbi Deb wants to chime in.
I have to unmute myself and lower my hand. It's like a two-step process. But I was thinking too about the dreams, that part of the chosenness to be more than just ordinary comes from the chosenness of receiving the gift of the dreams and knowing what to do with them, and knowing, as you know, as Joseph says, the dreams, you know, we know from the story the dreams come from God. They're not, you know, they're not his dreams, and the interpretation of them, I mean, he applies, you know, and interprets them to say collect grains in the storehouses and they'll, you know, those will be good in the lean years, but you got to, you know, he sort of knows how to operationalize the gift that he received. But I think a lot of it is about how are these special people, how are they called? How is an ordinary person called to be more than ordinary? And that's a, you know, that's a special way of getting there. It could be through dreams or visions or, you know, the words of God.
That's nice. Yeah. How are we all called?
This has been a beautiful discussion. It's the first time that the three of us are working together in this way. But I think we're going to get another opportunity to do that next month, because there's so much more to be told about the Joseph story. So we're looking at the date of October 28th, which is a Tuesday evening. And it'll be at the same time, 7 o'clock Eastern. And there we'll be digging into greater depth on the mystical meanings and application. And we didn't really talk about the differences between the Torah and the Quran, which there's some very interesting ones, mostly additions or on the part of one or the other rather than conflicting, but there are a few little points too, and how those of us who are interested in dialogue, how we deal constructively with those differences. So a lot more discussion ahead. And Catherine has her hand up.
Yes, I didn't mention that we discussed with Alsalam about Suleika, and he had some very interesting things to say. And I would like to mention Todd Lawson, as a scholar, a professor, now retired Canadian, who's done a lot of research on Joseph. And I remember one of his talks, he talked about Suleika. So I hope that in the next meeting, you'll be able to, he's nodding his head. Hopefully you'll, because it's a very different perspective, from much different than what we see in the Bible. So hope you'll address that in the next meeting.
Yes, of course. And this is actually what just Ted says now. There is some additions and some stories in here and there. So, and this is what we always say, is that what you can find here, you can find there, so you can complete your picture. Not for a conflict, but to complete each other as a human being. Because all of us, we are the creatures of the Creator. So,
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned from our past dialogues is the perspective of the Torah and the Quran are somewhat different. The Quran is very didactic. That is, it draws the lessons out clearly and says what is to be learned from this or that or the other thing. The Torah very often just tells these stories. Sometimes very uncomfortable things happen, and it just kind of leaves it there for the reader to figure out what the spiritual lesson is we're supposed to draw from the account.
yeah, and we said before that also because of the at different times. So the Torah, it's much before the Quran, and the nations and the people and the population in the world and all the changes and what the people needs. So yeah, this is the beauty of the thing when we're thinking about all these things.
Yes, and both approaches have validity, you know, very, very deep meaning.
You mentioned that the next meeting will be October 28th, which is a Tuesday. So I'm wondering, will the days of the week change periodically? Because this is Thursday.
I think all of our schedules and our calendars are very cluttered. And frankly, it's just happenstance that we happen to be free on a Thursday night or Tuesday night or whatever. So I think it will probably float. We'll try to do this every month toward the end of the month. So keep that routine, but it could well be a different night of the week. We've done Wednesday night as well. So, yeah.
I was wondering, I had a question about the story of Joseph, because I had learned it from the Jewish tradition, moving from my Christian years. And my understanding was that Joseph was one of the 12 sons of Israel, but that the Muslim tradition comes from the other son, from Ishmael. And no, is that not true?
No, he's this he
Because I mean, I was interested that it's the same story. It's the same son.
Yeah, it's the son of Israel. Actually, the Prophet Muhammad says, peace be upon him, that the generous, the son of the generous, the son of the generous, the son of the generous. And when they ask him who's the best person in the world, he says Joseph, because the generous, the son of generous, and son of generous, and son of generous, which means Joseph, the son of Jacob, the son of Yitzhak, the son of Abraham. So Abraham had two sons, Ishmael and Ishaq, but he's his uncle. He's not his son. And the Quran says that that he gave him Ishaq and his grandson to Abraham, Jacob. So Joseph came from Jacob, and he one of the 12 sons.
So the genealogy is the same in the Bible and the Quran. Yeah, both sons are acknowledged in both traditions. Yeah.
But the sons of Ishmael, do we know who the sons of Ishmael, and they track that lineage as well?
Actually, it's in the Bible. The names of the sons of Ismail.
There's also 12 family heads, yeah?
That's what I had thought.
In the Bible as well, yeah.
In the Bible. In the Quran and the Islamic traditions, they not mentioned the names, but in the Arab traditions or histories, yes, we have names. But mostly the names it came from the Bible. And this is why I just read for you that and we say, this is from the Quran, and we sent not before you except men to whom we revealed. So ask the people of the reminder if you don't know. And that came actually about the names specifically.
Thank you.
Beautiful question. Thank you. Well, it's hard to pull ourselves away. The discussion could go on, but we've really appreciated seeing everybody tonight. Tell your friends and neighbors and contacts, and we hope to see you again next month.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have a video to conclude. You want to play that music video now, and then we'll say goodnight.
Good night.
Thank
Okay.
you.
This is a song of unity that'll bring joy to your heart.
Don't lose the contact. Mute.
I
I'm not
can't.
hearing the sound.
I can't hear. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
So powerful is the light of unity. So powerful is the light of unity. That it can illuminate the whole earth. That it can illuminate the whole earth. The whole earth, the whole earth, the whole earth. Tanto potente è la luce dell'unità. Tanto potente è la luce dell'unità che può illuminare il mondo intero, che può illuminare il mondo intero, il mondo intero, il mondo intero, il mondo intero. Tan poderosa, esa luz la unidad. Tan poderosa, esa luz la unidad que puede iluminar el mundo, que puede iluminar el mundo entero, el mundo entero, the whole earth, el mundo entero.
Nice.
Much love.
Beautiful. Good night, friends. See
Good
you
night.
next
Night,
See you.
everybody.
Thank
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
See you next
Thank
time.
you.